I promise that all of my slides will not just be text on one background. But tonight's conversation is about hope, where we find it, how we grow it, and how we turn that hope into action. Great. So we are living in an extraordinary time that can challenge our ability to feel hopeful about the future. And even in the best of times, hope is harder than we think. Optimism is actually a lot easier because it's just a frame of mind. It doesn't require us to actually do anything. We just have to believe that things will probably be okay. Hope is different. In psychology, hope is a cognitive practice that involves the intentional acts of setting goals and making progress toward them. So hope has three ingredients: goals, pathways toward those goals, and the energy to pursue those pathways even when obstacles arise. So hope is empowered, it's practical, and it changes outcomes. Science tells us that hope is incredibly important for our health. Studies of groups like college students show us that hope is often more effective than many mental health interventions in youth populations. Hope is also correlated with what psychologists call pro-social behavior. So people who are more hopeful are more likely to have positive civic attitudes. They're more likely to believe that it's important to participate in voting, to participate in civic dialogue. They're more likely to engage in behaviors like cooperating, sharing, and supporting. They're more likely to believe that it's important to respect the rule of law and government institutions. And research shows that people who are more hopeful are more likely to be engaged in our communities. So I started talking about hope as a cognitive practice, but it's clearly much more than that. Some studies published in the journal Emotions last year suggested that hope is the most important and consistent predictor of meaning in life, above and beyond other positive emotions. So clearly, hope benefits us as individuals, but it also has a really important impact on our communities, on our well-being as a society. When I say society, I'm not talking about the California Native Plant Society. So the first message that I want to leave for tonight is about this virtuous cycle of hope and action. Hope fuels action, action reinforces hope in this virtuous cycle that we can build together. And native plants have a really important role in that virtuous cycle. Today, everywhere around us, we see signs of biodiversity loss, of climate change, of ecosystem collapse, a lot of really scary existential challenges. Native plants are at the intersection of solutions to all of those urgent challenges because native plants are the foundation of all of our terrestrial ecosystems, our land-based ecosystems. And California has more of those native plants than most places in the world. We're here in one of 36 biodiversity hotspots. These are the 36 places on the planet where the diversity of life is especially rich, it's especially unique, and it's especially threatened. California has about 6,500 types of native plants, more than any other US state. And these plants inspire awe and wonder. We have the world's largest, tallest, and oldest individual plants here in California, desert super blooms that can be seen from space, iconic landscapes like our redwood forests and our oak woodlands, And these native plants and their habitats are increasingly at risk. They're increasingly threatened. They're really important to protect, not only because nature is precious and worth protecting in itself, but also because when we protect these plants, when we protect these systems, we're protecting what we depend on for the air we breathe, the water we drink, climate resilience. And as I heard earlier, maybe it was Dan who said this, when we save plants, when we save native plants, we save everything. I may be listening to next week. Yeah. I think a number of us have said that. So California Native Plant Society has 68 decades of experience protecting those native plants and habitats. We were founded by a small group of passionate grassroots advocates in Berkeley. And over the last 60 years, we've grown into this incredible network. More than 13,000 members and almost 190,000 supporters. So all of this translates to impact as an organization. We're powered by 35 volunteer-led chapters, like this incredible chapter here in Orange County, and we have a statewide staff based in Sacramento. So together, we're one CNPS. We share a common mission, vision, and strategic plan. And CNPS is doing extraordinary work across the state. Again, some of the work that I've had time to disclose up here in Orange County is truly extraordinary. Members of this chapter are documenting the native plant diversity out here in Orange County, helping the public to understand and appreciate what's here. I did fact check with Bob Allen and Fred yesterday, but Orange County has probably about 1,000 types of native plants. Of those, 78 are unique to California, and 3 are known only from Orange County and nowhere else on the planet. So those are the Allen daisy, the Laguna Beach live forever, and the Santiago Canyon live forever. So Ron, I borrowed a couple of your pictures off the web here. Santiago Canyon live forever was only described for Western science in 2024, thanks to work by local experts, including members of this chapter. Advocates from this chapter, CNPS members and supporters, have played a really important role in helping to advance local, state, and federal initiatives. Last year, we saw a really concerning bill introduced, or not bill, actually just a very concerning proposal in the US Congress that would require the sell-off of millions of acres of federal public lands in the Western United States, including in California. Advocates from this chapter played a unique and crucial role in defeating that effort. So thank you to everyone who spoke up and made your voices heard in that critical moment. Of course, this chapter also hosts a number of community engagement events that provide meaningful opportunities for people of all backgrounds to connect with native plants. I know Irina is in your, yes. Organizing events like the annual garden tour, which will take place in April. So those are just a few examples of the great work that's happening here in Orange County. And when we zoom out, the picture of statewide impact that we see is just as impressive. CNPS and our partners are currently mapping more than 20 million acres of vegetation across California. This is a historic effort to close gaps in information needed to inform conservation and land use decisions. We're documenting the locations and status of rare plants across the state. I'm guessing that someone can identify what this plant is. It's a Monardella, I heard. This is Gary's curly leaf Monardella. So this is an example of a plant that CNPS is helping to pursue protections for through the California Endangered Species Act. This photo was taken by a CNPS volunteer from our San Luis Obispo chapter. We are developing California's first important plant areas map. This is a tool that integrates data on rare plants, plant communities, and threats, so that we can identify where conservation can have the greatest impact. So think about this as a tool for turning botany into policy. We're expecting to release that first California important areas map, important plant areas map this spring. And it will be an important tool for helping to focus and amplify our conservation efforts. How many of you have visited our CalScape website? Lots of hands going up in the room. So this is CNPS's incredibly popular native plant gardening and landscaping database, which receives about 1 million, or already received, I should say, about 1.4 million visitors a year. That's when we had CalScape available just in English. And last year we were excited to launch CalScape in Spanish for the first time. So we're really making this information accessible to an even broader set of audiences in California. And here's an example of a vehicle for hope. California is leading the world in progress toward 30 by 30. How many of you have heard the term 30 by 30 before? Seeing a number of hands go up. This is the global movement to protect 30% of lands and waters by 2030. It's a nature strategy to stop the extinction crisis. It is a climate strategy. This is conservation at a historic generational scale. California is leading most of the world in approaching that numerical target. So as of June 2025, California protected about 26% of our lands and almost 22% of coastal waters for that 30% goal. So we're leading progress in approaching that number. California is also leading much of the world in applying an especially robust definition of conservation. That means that what we protect under 30 by 30 is likely to have higher biodiversity value. California is also exceptional in the way in which we're achieving 30 by 30. So this is about protecting biodiversity, it's about building climate resilience, but California is also implementing 30 by 30 in a way that is redefining what conservation looks like. Respecting tribal sovereignty, centering tribal partnerships, and protecting lands in a way that increases equitable access to nature's benefits. CNPS has had an important role in progress toward 30 by 30, both as the voice for plants and as a strategic leader in the statewide coalition of people and organizations working to advance 30 by 30. So all of this work couldn't be happening at a more important moment. The biodiversity and climate crises are accelerating. People are feeling increasingly disconnected from nature. Our society feels deeply divided. So there's a lot at stake in this moment. To meet this moment, CNPS launched 2 biodiversity campaigns last year. So these are multi-year biodiversity campaigns intended to help us achieve our strategic plan. Our first campaign is called Saving What Matters Most. Our goal here is to protect California's native plants and habitats by focusing on the intersection of three key factors. So there are a lot of words on this slide. You can essentially think about the intersection of biodiversity, connectivity, and climate resilience. So we're thinking about plants, and we're thinking about multiple benefits, recognizing that the extinction crisis and the climate crisis are two sides of the same coin. Our theory of change here relies on the progress and momentum behind California's 30 by 30 and public lands protection movements. These movements have organized partners in policy as never before. Momentum is strong. And so we know that by focusing our efforts, working with partners, we can accelerate conservation where it's needed most. This campaign relies on three strategies. Actionable science, and there's so much CNPS work that's embedded in that actionable science. That actionable science informs our movement building and strategic communications. So we have a very strong reputation as CNPS for doing work that is grounded in solid science. And we know that timely, relevant, and accessible data are the foundation for sound decision making. We also know that translating that into action requires a broad base of trained advocates. And advocacy must be supported by intentional and appropriate targeted messages so that we can influence key moments of decision making. Target outcomes of this campaign include important plant areas protected, federal public lands defended, and conservation made possible. That last one is really about ensuring that there are dedicated and ongoing investments by the state of California in biodiversity protection and management. So that's our first multi-year biodiversity campaign. Our second one is called Landscapes for Change. And thank you, Elizabeth, for showing. We've got copies here, actually, the special issue of our Florida membership magazine, which highlighted this Landscapes for Change campaign. Our previous issue of Florida highlighted the Dating What Matters Most campaign. So this is a multi-year campaign to transform our communities with native plants. It's based on a shared vision with partners of a California where native plants are the first choice, the obvious choice in our built environment, where people can connect with the natural world where they live, work, and play. So the big idea is that if we can change the way we plan and plant our built environment, we can create spaces for people and nature to thrive. The theory of change here is that, like electric vehicles, the widespread adoption of native plants won't happen on its own. It requires public policy to propel industry. And that policy must be driven by collaboration, consensus, and science, and supported by marketing and education. And so what you're seeing there are the outlines of 5 strategies of this campaign: science, industry partnership, state and local policy, mainstreaming native plants, that's really about marketing, and education. So again, the engine here is policy change that relies on collaboration and consensus, and is also supported by marketing and education. Target outcomes of this campaign are broad participation in community science. So this allows us to both demonstrate with data the biodiversity benefits of native plants in urban spaces. It also creates opportunities for people to connect with nature and helps to foster biodiversity stewards. Another important outcome is policy change at the local and state levels. Measurable growth in private gardens is another thing we'll be tracking. And the last is positive change in public perception. And if you're wondering why these outcomes, it's in large part because we think these are meaningful and measurable outcomes. So we can know how much progress we're making toward these goals. Okay, so I've been walking through some campaigns that may have felt a little bit abstract, but hopefully many of you have been hearing these or seeing these words, and you're reflecting on how your work is showing up in these campaigns and advancing these campaigns. And I'd love to hear more from staff members here in that. But if you're asking yourself, how can I get involved? I'm going to share a few ways. So the first is joining the CNPS Advocacy Corps. This is a network of trained advocates. This is a trained network. It includes skill building webinars, action hours, timely alerts, so that we can make our voices heard at key moments to influence decisions. Signing up for the Advocacy Corps takes 2 minutes, and you'll be prepared for local, state, and federal opportunities. Here's another opportunity. Join the CNPS Urban Biodiversity Working Group. There is an incredible wealth of knowledge represented here in this room and in folks who are joining us on Zoom. Share your experience. Help to advance a local urban biodiversity resolution or ordinance. There's a lot of learning and a lot of knowledge exchange that's happening in this working group. And we'd love for the knowledge and experience in this chapter to enrich our activities across the state. Garden with Hellscape. So for those of us who are fortunate enough to have a patio with a kindergarten, or maybe even some land and yard, Hellscape provides an opportunity to design or upgrade that garden. And lastly, I probably wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't encourage folks to join the CNPS or sign up as a follower. Membership is what helps to sustain our science, our education, our advocacy, and our tools as an organization. So you certainly don't have to become a CNPS member to work with CNPS. We've got a lot of great resources on our website. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to visit. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back to the virtuous cycle that I was talking about earlier. So, hope brings us goals, pathways, and energy. Action driven by science, advocacy, and gardening helps to generate visible outcomes. Those visible outcomes renew our hope. As individuals and as communities. And so we do more. That hope is contagious. I often say, and I adopted this phrase from Patrick, that the world is counting on California, and California is counting on us, right? The work that chapters like Orange County is doing is helping to change landscapes, both literally and figuratively. If every person in this room tonight who hasn't yet had an opportunity to commit to an action in the front, if every person in this room, some of us, and I'm looking at Joey here, have committed to countless actions in the class. But if every person commits to one action in the class, we'll feel that surge of hope that comes from doing, right? Again, this is about building that contagious hope So I want to end by thanking all of you for what you're doing to help protect native plants and strengthen our communities, for your work to steward gardens and habitats, to introduce people to native plants, to protect them by advocating for conservation, by welcoming new members and mentoring leaders, by helping to build this movement. I'm grateful and honored to be in this staff with you. So I want to stop here. I've been doing a lot of talking, and Elizabeth and Mel and others heard me say when they first invited me to come and visit with the chapter, I'm much more interested in hearing from you. So what in our work with CNPS resonates most with you? What are you finding most inspiring and most powerful in this moment? What can we be doing better as an organization? Do you think about our success and our impact as an organization, which is pretty phenomenal? What can we be doing better? So I'll stop here. Jonathan. So maybe I'll ask, can I see that for your third? Yes. Okay. Can I have you, Mike? Oh, I can see. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, this is my second native plant event I think I've attended. This guy over here got me into it. I recently moved to California this summer. But I'm a social worker, so this is completely not my realm at all. But you're talking about policy and advocacy, and I think you did a good job inspiring hope, because now I'm going to sign up to volunteer. But I wanted to say, in like your marketing and everything, as a social worker, we have to deal with policy and the social safety net, right? Like people's housing, healthcare, and I think the environment and what you guys do is totally tied in with that, and environmental justice. And I would say the key in marketing and science, we see some politicians, unfortunately, no matter what the science says, they're stupid sometimes, and they don't listen anyways. So I think having like your guys' stories from what my professors say about, lobbying and advocating, your personal narrative and having your stories is also what matters, and that's ultimately what hooks in other people. So just considering that in your advocacy. This guy over here, he tells really great stories. I now know more about native plants than I ever have in my life. So yeah, I just want to say like that is the key, like those small steps, the personal narrative, and that's how you make those changes, I think, from that perspective. Okay, I'm going badly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing those perspectives, and thank you for coming back to a CNPS meeting. I appreciate you sharing the importance of storytelling, and it's one of the reasons why our work on the ground, the chapters are doing, is so powerful, because this work is happening at a really tangible, personal level. I mentioned these campaigns, which for us as CNPS present an opportunity for us to focus and amplify our impact in a moment when we know that threats to conservation are dire, right? I mean, the next few years are likely to be the most damaging time in the history of US climate and conservation action. And we also know that we're part of a tremendous community and a tremendous movement. So we are going, as an organization, are going to be shaping more of our communications around those campaigns. But talking about the campaigns in the way that I did tonight really isn't effective, right? I can sort of say, well, here's the campaign and here's the goal and here's the strategy. And it's sort of like blah, 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 right? But as we're able to start to tell those stories and show what chapters and individuals are doing on the ground, those real, tangible, solutions-oriented actions, that's what helps us to tell our story powerfully. So that's a long-winded yes, yes, yes. And thank you to the points that you shared.
It should be on.
I want to bounce off of your idea because I in the past have worked as a social worker, but I'm also my first meeting. I started going a few months ago. I'm at OC Park volunteer. This came up 1 year and did so this is new world to me. So I'm coming from more of an outsider because you guys are all very experienced. But bouncing off of your idea of storytelling, something I've been on your website a lot, and it's like great to read about everyone else is doing, but I would love to two things, the videos of personal homes, like because I need to go to tours, but I can't drive to most of these places. I can't afford to spend gas to drive to go see these places. So seeing people like first, I get overwhelmed, I go on Google or like have to go and watch videos of people, and I would love to see a source showing like the beginning. This is a house. And because I did something with the Tree of Life here at Key, which I was looking to show like properties, but professionally done. But to go and see, hey, this is a really small yard, and this is what it looked like before, and these were the steps we did, and to show us because that gives me hope that I can start with something that's very small, and I can do this, and I can see the steps, the before. And it's actually something I was going to do with my own yard to broadcast it for other people. But, and so that would be nice. And then like video, something that's like a live thing, not just photos and like, hey, this is bringing me happiness. And, you know, and more internet, like videos versus just a lot of reading, which is a lot of harder for a lot younger people don't read as much. And they're very much into videos. And I know that's not maybe what your thing is, but they can learn better with the younger generation. Was that offensive?
That was
Like, I'm not trying to do this.
no, please. I love hearing the ideas. I will say that feedback is a gift, and constructive feedback is a particularly special gift. So, those ideas and that feedback is really helpful. And some of you may know that we're in the process of rebuilding or building a new CNPS website. So our current website has a lot of resources, a lot of information. We've recognized for a while that there's been an opportunity to update our website. And the work that was needed was so deep that we realized we just need to rebuild the website. And now we have these campaigns that have just come online. There's an opportunity to tell our story in a different way. So we're really excited about doing things in ways that really share the stories of individuals, share the stories of chapters, are engaging, visual. So yeah, using storytelling tools and media that we know are effective. Thank you for that.
Just real quick, we got a question on Zoom from Allison Terry. Is CNPS working with the nursery trade to get more California native plants available in retail nurseries for the public?
Yeah. Let's see, wrong guy for hospital. Yes, so that's happening here, I think especially at the local chapter level. There are lots of relationships between CNPS chapters and local nurseries. And of course, and there's a lot of people are feeling very sad about the change happening to your life nursery right now. So I want to acknowledge that. So I know that's a really big deal for the community and a really big deal for the state. So great relationships, I think a lot of collaboration. And in the context of this campaign that I was talking about, there is a strategy that's about industry partnerships. And a lot of that centers on working with industry to help prepare industry partners for change. But part of that and part of that, right? It's not just about encouraging the industry or encourage the industry to grow more native plants or sell more native plants. We actually need to change some of the economic systems and incentives to make that possible, to make it profitable for growers and sellers. And so that policy change that I mentioned is crucial to this. CNPS ran a native plant landscaping bill in the California legislature a couple of years ago. So we were invited to join Assemblymember Friedman's office in advancing a bill that would have required a percentage of most public landscaping to incorporate native plants. That bill didn't pass. It got pretty far in the legislature. I think folks are pleasantly surprised by how far it got. But one of the reasons why we learned a lot from the process, and I think we recognize, and I say this in the spirit of learning, not criticism, that we recognize that we didn't have the time to do our homework ahead of advancing that bill, including with the industry. So really working with industry this time and a range of other partners, but working with the industry to help identify what those shared needs, concerns, opportunities, and policy positions are, and then advancing a bill that helps to create that durable demand for native plants is going to be key to helping set conditions for our industry to grab for production. I'm looking at Ron Vanderhoff because I'm saying this because well, if I start shaking his head, then I'm just gonna stop talking.
Okay, what are we can do legislatively to help protect our, native wild garden spaces? I'm constantly having issues with city of Irvine and late summer, my naturalized garden is really dormant. And I have a lot of issues with code enforcement from the city's rules as to what is what. Because my natural mulch, they don't see as mulch, they see it as plant food. So wondering what we do legislatively to help protect people who install these gardens from these antiquated codes, city codes.
Thanks for raising that issue, and that's a question. I mean, this would be an issue that is addressed in the context of developing a policy, a policy statement or a policy agenda. I don't know if it will end up there ultimately or not, but I think what you're also highlighting is, again, the importance of marketing and education. So that people understand that a dormant native plant garden it's not dead, it's not ugly, it's not neglected, it's not an eyesore, right? It's doing what it's supposed to do at a certain time of the year. And I think that, we're seeing the light bulbs go off at the individual level, at the community level. We're having lunch today when we're talking about how one garden in neighborhood and native plant garden sometimes has this kind of contagious effect because people see something that they haven't seen before and it challenges their conceptions of what beauty is like in landscaping, and you start to see some of those design ideas spread. We see that in our neighborhood back home, and I think a number of you have seen that happen as well. So that's happening. That's happening at the individual level, but we need to really accelerate that. And tools like CalScape are really helpful for introducing people to other ways of thinking about designing gardens, providing beautiful examples, static examples. Videos would be great too, at some point. But this is going to take really changing public perception. And not everybody's going to want a native plant garden, right? We have different ideas, even within more traditional ways of designing landscapes. There's a range of tastes, a range of aesthetic preferences. But with marketing and education, we can, I think, really help to catalyze that change that we're talking about. So when we connect marketing and education with policy and the industry work and the scientific data that can help us make the argument with policymakers, and we working as a community of folks across the native plant community can, I just repeating myself, but can really help to accelerate that change. And for folks who are interested in urban biodiversity, and there's an opportunity to sign up for that urban biodiversity working group to bring in your perspectives, your ideas, your knowledge, your questions. Help us think through this opportunity.
I
Becky. Thank you for introducing yourself, Adelaide.
The projects and things that have come out of the CNPS are so thrilling and overwhelmingly exciting to me. When I see both the wildfires in Norte County and all the projects, I'm amazed. And every time one weather hop agrees with my observation, I get a little thrilled. Yeah, and I also wanted to support the videos and photos of yards that are maybe not super beautiful, because we all love to see those beautiful yards. My yard is not, my yard is wild and unwieldy, and I love it, and I am not anywhere near brave enough to participate in the garden tour, because it's just out of control.
Yes.
Yes, I would get there, but I would benefit from seeing other yards that are a little rough, little in progress, okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to say.
Thank you for sharing that, Becky. And Marina, if you took a note down, right, to follow the Becky, like maybe next year. Oh, and I saw my hand first.
This is Jennifer. At one point, I was the one chosen to go speak with the master gardeners in Orange County as a representative from our chapter. And it reminded me of one time when my mom, who was a gardener, but not necessarily a native enthusiast, came to visit me in Orange County, and she was disgusted that we could grow anything in the world here, because she was used to gardening in challenging conditions. So when I went to the master gardeners in Orange County, where anything can grow, and these gardeners can grow anything, what I told them was, okay, you can grow anything, anything will grow here, but at least consider planting plants that are adapted here. And they appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer, and master gardeners, of course, are really, really important partner in this effort. And yeah, the idea of gardening for habitat is not an intuitive one. It's not one that I grew up with. And and I've been interested in nature and ecosystems since I was a little kid. But tools like Housecape and the garden tour that you're hosting here, and these other examples are helping people to understand that there is a way to garden for habitat, right? And then the light bulb goes on, and it's really exciting. And oh, by the way, we have a water crisis in California here, and so the idea that we can build climate resilience and save water and garden for habitat is pretty exciting once people wrap their minds around it. Elizabeth.
Yes, I wanted to answer about the videos. We have a new committee, the education committee, and young people are gonna make videos. That's our plan, for you guys.
You made us say So what that says for me is that we'll not only be making videos, but we'll be making videos that people actually want to watch. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you.
And I just have one more small little thing to tag on to what he was saying.
Okay.
You might be dying.
I think it's dying. Okay, I'm sorry. So I wanted to tag on, I grew up in Irvine from 3rd to 8th grade, and by the time I hit junior high, I had a hard time. Every week was vacuumed up, and we never got to see leaves on the ground. And it was an emotionally really hard experience for us. I just spoke to a woman today who was living in Woodbridge the same time I was. But when I did have kids, I ended up back in Irvine again, in Shady Canyon, in the areas, or Quill Hill, where there used to be cows. So, what the point I'm saying is, like, I grew up with associations, and I also been on the board for associations, because I want to help with the gardening, right? And there's plants, and the builders put all these in. And I know it's too hard to work with the builders at this level, but I really feel, and I talked to the owner, even of, Tree of Life, just lightly, but I'm willing to go to what's it called, they have these meetings once a month with the board, who typically do not know that much about gardening. And they are open if we could get them to pick one plant to incorporate, because they're constantly replanting things that die and get eaten by rats. That's a big, so I'm very interested, I think, to help try to change that climate. People are just not knowledgeable. I grew up gardening my whole life with English garden people, like family, but if we could just, an advocate show up, bring something for those board members, they get a dinner at Keystone, these places. I really feel like it had one little area, and then they can write it in their newsletter, and slowly start to help with the association. They are locked in, they just want to check the boxes on the board, they're just dealing with fines and maybe replacements, but I really think there's an opening there. If we have somebody willing to go to my meetings once a month, find somebody, hi, I'm gonna talk to you for 10 minutes, and you guys can commit to one plant incorporation.
Thank you for sharing that, and definitely engagement with homeowners associations is a big area of opportunity.
So something I've noticed is as we install native plants, and I've done a few now for HOAs, like small installations that which is small inroads, that there's this lack of knowledge about caring for California natives and ornamental horticulture community. I've been through a whole program, I'm an associate's degree in ornamental horticulture, and saw no content, and I did this in Southern California. One thing I'm trying to figure out is how we get inroads with those communities, how we get landscape professionals excited about this, and how we get people who are doing this day in, day out knowledgeable about the subject matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for highlighting that. That's another important piece of this, right? It's an ecosystem of opportunities and needs. And so ensuring the success of professionals working with native plants is absolutely a piece of this as well. And we've got some tools and information on CalState that are intended to be helpful in that regard, and there's more opportunity ahead as well. I think for CNPS as a statewide organization, we're trying to really front load some of that policy work right now. Seeing that policy work as an engine that's going to help us to drive this whole system level change. But there's ongoing really strong work in education, that's sort of public education, to ensure the success of home gardeners, but it's also the professionals as well. And so I think there's a combination of work to be done at the local level as well as at the state level. But we have to help build capacity there as well. Thanks for highlighting.
Hi again. I just wanted to express my gratitude to CNPS staff and to mention that, on our chapter level, it's so crucial to realize the support on tech level, as we talked earlier, that there's always somebody behind my back to always email to, and the response was almost always within a couple hours. And it's really helpful. And, without your support, you won't be able to do what you're doing.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, I will share that with my colleagues, and I know they'll appreciate it. I have the privilege of working with some amazing staff colleagues, and they care deeply about their work. It's a really passionate, talented team. we recognize that volunteers are the heart of CNPS, that so much of our work across the state is being powered by really passionate volunteers like many of you in the room here tonight. So I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you again, especially to our volunteers who are showing up and showing what can be done in this space. Ron was sharing earlier at lunch that, so I should let you speak for yourself, Ron, but something that stuck in my head, with your mission was to connect people with nature, right? And that plants are a really wonderful way to do that. I can use different words like maybe the best way, but yeah. Right, but again, in this moment where we're facing these really real environmental crises, and we know that we have to do more. So it's not even enough to try to sustain what we were doing a few years ago, at a time when there are more challenges to our environmental progress. We already knew that we needed to find ways to move further and faster, to make this work more inviting, more relevant to more people, to make it relevant to communities across California. And so, as chapters, you are the basic chapter members, chapters as organizations. You're the basically ambassadors for the community. So, sorry, I'm running with fun. You have the floor.
Well, it's been a long evening. I want to thank everybody for your patience and want to thank June. I think the best decision CPS ever did was hiring June. I don't know what it takes. I mean, I'm ready to do something right now. So, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Joan, for the last 8 years. And thank you all for coming. Come back and see us again online next month on February 18th, I think it is.
19th.
Is that right?
19th.
19th, that close. On February 19th, we will have Lauren Cohn from the Cleveland National Forest talking about some of the flora of the Santa Ana Mountains and some of the effects of fire following after the big fire last year. So join us at that. That'll be online for you people who like video. And also, before you leave, if the people, the weed warriors that John McDonald's want to get a picture. So don't all leave right away. I want to get. Thank you. Anything else you want to say here?
I will just say again, thank you. It is a joy and a privilege to work with CNPS. I feel pinch myself the time that I have the opportunity to serve in this role with such an incredible community of people. Thank you for.
Thank you.
It's okay, it's the mustache. And the middle part. Oh, my, you're gonna think.